Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, Gardening in Cold Spring Harbor. In today's video, I'm going to give you not one, not two, but 6 African violet care tips. If you follow these 6 easy yet proven care tips, I guarantee you that your African violets will be healthy and blooming for you all year long. For those of you looking for that online gardening channel that offers tips, tricks, easy yet proven gardening advice to take your home gardens to that next level. Don't go anywhere, guys. Stick around with me today. Start by going below this video and clicking the subscribe button. If you are enjoying the content of my gardening videos, if you find my gardening videos to be useful, helpful, informative, don't forget to click the bell icon as well. YouTube will send you notifications every single time I'll upload a new gardening video. Now come with me. Let's get started. Let's dive right in, guys, and let's talk about that care tip number 1. This care tip is more for those who don't already own African violet plants. So if you already have an African violet plant in your home or multiple African violet plants, then go on right ahead and skip to tip number 2. But tip number 1 is choose a healthy African violet plant. So what do you need to look for when choosing and purchasing an African violet plant? First and foremost, you want to look at the color of your plant's leaves, the foliage. Always make sure that the leaves of your African violet plant are nice and deep green color. You never want to see yellow leaves, brown leaves, dry leaves, mushy to the touch leaves. Any of those color changes to the African violet plant's foliage is not a good sign. That means that plant is not healthy nor happy. You always want to see lush, deep green colored foliage. Next thing you must always do prior to purchasing an African violet plant is pop that plant out of the container and look at the plant's root system. You want to make sure that there's no root rot happening. The health of your African violet plant is directly related to the health of the African violet plant's root system. If that root system is rotted or waterlogged, your African violet plant will not be healthy, will not be happy, and will die off on you soon after purchase. So the leaf color as well as the health of the root system are crucial prior to you purchasing that plant and bringing the plant home. African violet care tip number 2. Give your African violet plant enough sunlight. African violet plants most of the time don't bloom at all, only because they're not given enough of bright, indirect sunlight. African violets do best with either northern or eastern sunlight exposure. Too much of bright, direct sunlight onto your plant's foliage will cause burn or scorch marks. If you are keeping your African violet plants on a windowsill, make sure that the leaves of your African violet plant are not touching the glass directly, especially during the cold winter months. Now, make sure if you are growing your African violet plant on a windowsill, make sure that you rotate your plant at least once a week. Why? Because you want all of the foliage to get an equal amount of sunlight exposure. You want your plant to be nice and full and lush looking. We don't want just one side of the plant to get sunlight, yet not the other one. So rotate your plant at least once a week. African violet plants can benefit from a plant grow light, especially during the cold winter months when the sun is not that bright and not that hot, and the daylight hours are much shorter. So during those cold winter months, you could definitely keep your African violet plant healthier and happier by placing it on your plant grow lights. Care tip number 3, keep your African violet plants cozy and warm. African violets prefer temperatures like we do, anywhere between 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit. However, ideal temperature for an African violet plant is 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. However, your African violet plant will be absolutely fine growing and thriving with temperatures anywhere between 65 degrees and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Optimal nighttime temperatures for African violet plants is between 55 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. The temperature should never dip below 55 degrees Fahrenheit during the night if you want your African violet plant to grow, to thrive, and to bloom for you. Care tip number 4 is always water your African violet plants from underneath. African violet plants do not like to be watered from the top. In fact, if the leaves or the foliage of your African violet plant gets direct exposure to moisture, the foliage will suffer. The leaves of your African violet plant will start to get soggy and mushy. So now, how do you water your African violet plant from below? You should always use a plate or a saucer of some sort. You pour the water directly into the saucer, enough water that the container in which your African violet plant is growing in will sit in this water for at least an hour. So 1 hour is the typical rule of thumb. You want the root system to absorb that moisture from below. Because again, we want the leaves or the foliage of our African violet plant to stay intact and dry. After 1 hour, whatever extra water or moisture you have left remaining in the tray or the saucer, of course, we're going to spill out into a sink. We do not want to let our African violet plant sit in any more excess moisture after the 1 hour exposure. Say you don't have a tray or a saucer that's large enough to allow for enough moisture content that your plant can sit in there for an hour. What do you do then? Come with me, let me show you. Say you don't have a plate or a saucer that's large enough or deep enough to hold that enough water so your African violet plant can sit in it for an hour to absorb that moisture into its root system. What do you do then? You use a bowl or a Pyrex of some sort. You're going to use the bowl or the Pyrex container. You're going to pour the water directly into that bowl or Pyrex, like so. Make sure you add enough water so your African violet plants can sit in it and absorb all the moisture through the root system. Again, you're going to place your African violet plant together with the container directly into that bowl or that Pyrex bowl. Now, make sure that the container in which you have your African violet plant will have enough drainage holes. If the container does not have any drainage holes, there's no way for the water to absorb through the bottom into the root system. Now, you're going to place your African violets directly into the bowl or the Pyrex with water in it. So the larger your container, the more African violet plants you can fit. As you could see, the bottom of the container is directly touching the water. And you're going to leave your African violet plants sitting in this Pyrex container for the same amount of time, which is roughly 1 hour. After the 1 hour is up, you're going to take your African violet plants out of the Pyrex or the container. Make sure the excess water drips out from the bottom, and then you place them back where you have them growing originally, into that beautiful room with bright indirect sunlight. Care tip number 5 is fertilize your African violet plants regularly, especially between spring and fall seasons. I typically fertilize my African violet plants every 2 to 4 weeks with an organic, slow release fertilizer. You can use a fertilizer that's specifically formulated for African violet plants, or you can use a general organic slow release fertilizer that's meant for house blooming plants. You don't have to worry so much during the winter months, but you should fertilize your African violet plants regularly, again, between spring and fall season, anywhere between every 2 to 4 weeks. African violet care tip number 6 is repot your African violet plants only when necessary. African violet plants tend to do better. They tend to grow better and bloom better when they are slightly root bound. However, there's a fine line between being slightly root bound and too root bound, where they are not going to do good and going to start to die off. However, when you are ready to repot your African violet plant, there are a few key things which you must know in order to successfully repot your African violet for maximal growth and bloom success. And let me share these repotting tips with you right now. So that first repotting tip is choosing the correct size container. Never forget that your African violet plants do like to feel a bit snug. So the rule of thumb for choosing the correct size container is the container which you choose should be 1/3 of the size of your plant's leaf spread. So the diameter of your leaf spread. So let me give you an example. Say the size of your leaf spread is 12 inches. Say you measure it and the diameter is 12 inches across. How large of a container should you choose? What should be the diameter, the size of the container, the new container? We take that size of the leaf spread, so 12 inches, and we divide that by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. So the new container should not be any larger than 4 inches in diameter. You always take that leaf spread number and you divide it by 3. And that's the size of the container which you should choose. Next tip is choosing the correct soil. African violet plants like loose, airy, well-draining soil. So typically they don't do well in regular potting mix, as it tends to be very heavy and does not drain well. Always choose airy, loose potting mix. There are potting mix sold specifically formulated for African violet plants, and I will link them in the comment section below for you guys. This is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for joining me here today as I gave you not 1, not 2, but 6 African violet care tips. If you follow these 6 easy yet proven care instructions, I guarantee you're going to have maximal growing and blooming success with your African violet plants. For those of you who enjoyed the content of today's video, if you found today's video to be informative, helpful, and useful, show me that support by clicking thumbs up below. Leave your comments in the comment section as well. Let me know, do you have African violet plants in your home? If so, what steps do you follow on the monthly basis for maximal growing and blooming success. For those of you who haven't yet subscribed to my gardening channel, Gardening in Cold Spring Harbor, what are you waiting for, guys? Super easy for you to do, yet super pleasing and rewarding to me, knowing that you guys enjoy watching my videos, that you find the content of my gardening videos to be useful, helpful, and informative. Click the subscribe button below. It's that simple and that easy. If you want to get notifications from YouTube every single time I'll upload a new gardening video, click the bell icon as well. You will get notifications absolutely every single time I'll upload a new garden video. I want to wish everyone a healthy and a happy new year. Be well, be happy, and enjoy spending that quality time with your loved ones. And happy gardening, guys, and I'll see you again in the new year 2024. Bye, guys.